If you like these videos, please check out my full course at www.lsat.totaltestprep.net with tons of clearly explained actual LSAT questions written by someone who's mastered test and helped others master it, and an evaluation period where you only pay if you want to continue.
Alright, so this is our third video in the introductory videos to the test. So here we'll deal with what the content of the test is, how you study for it, and is there a best time to take the test. So in terms of what's the content on the test, well, what can you expect? Well, the content of the LSAT is actually not going to be the law. So you're not going to be tested on your knowledge of laws or of legal processes or statutes or anything like that. And there isn't really any content that you can learn for the test because it doesn't test you on any particular content. So like we said before, there's nothing to memorize or to study for. Instead, it tests your reasoning and logical abilities. So logic is the basis of good reasoning, and logic is necessary for good reasoning, and it's incredibly important for the test. So you need to know logic. However, that doesn't mean that you're going to learn abstract symbols or lots of formal logic. What you are going to have to learn, and learn well, is how to distinguish between premises and conclusions. So that's very important. Likewise, what makes an argument good or bad? So evaluating arguments, determining the strength of the reasoning. Now, there will be some formal logic, but it's not going to be anything too complex. And within sort of the understanding formal logic, there's going to be a type of logic called conditional reasoning. It's if-then reasoning. So you will need to know that as well, and that's something we'll cover. Now, the LSAT also contains general information. There's no specific legal content, and you'll need to know logic and, in particular, conditional reasoning. So how do you study for it? Well, it's important to understand the philosophy behind the test. So the philosophy is what you need to know and what you need to understand about good reasoning abilities. And in particular, you need to recognize that you're being tested on skills that are important in the practice of the law. And then you also have to learn the techniques for the different types of questions. Now, the techniques are designed for the different types of questions. So the questions all test different aspects of your reasoning ability, and there's different and best ways to approach these different questions. So you need to go through each section type, and you need to learn what the different questions and their variations are, and you need to learn why the right answer is right and the wrong answer is wrong for each. You need to do them untimed and in isolation to master each one. And then finally, you have to do as many LSATs as you can under realistic conditions. So you break it apart, you understand, and you learn, and you practice everything individually, and then you put it together and you take actual LSATs to work on your execution. So that's how you study for the test. Now, when should you take it? So is there a best time to take the test? Well, there's no examination date which is easier than the rest. But most law schools start taking applications in fall, so really any date except March will generally allow you to apply on time. And most schools finish taking applications by March, so the November, January, and if this is if you're trying to start that same year. So if you're trying to start the same year that you're applying it, will mean that you're applying towards the end. Most schools have also, you need to understand, most schools have rolling admissions, which means that decisions are made as applications come in. So there's less spots the closer you get to that March deadline. The deadline, the application deadline, not the March administration. So the March application deadline when schools stop taking applications. So essentially, November and January, if you take the test in either November or January, that tends you to put at a bit of a disadvantage because by the time you're done with the test and by the time your scores come in and by the time you send it out, you're close to that March application deadline. However, the most important factor is to take it after giving yourself enough time to study. So time is the biggest factor in doing well in this test. Depends on several factors, but ideally at least 3 to 4 months of preparation is necessary. So if you can spend a couple of months to learn all of the material and then spend a couple of months to just take tests, that tends to work out for most people. So around 3 to 4 months. Okay, so let's recap, let's summarize what we've seen in these videos. So what is the LSAT? The LSAT is the law school entrance examination. Why is it important? Well, it's required for law school, and it's also an important part of the applications. Remember, it's about 50-50, your GPA and your LSAT, and you have to take it. It's required. You can't get into law school without it. What's the structure of the LSAT? Well, there's one analytical reasoning section, 2 logical reasoning sections, 1 reading comprehension section, 1 experimental section, which could be any of the previous ones, and 1 writing section. And they're all 35 minutes long, and there's a 10 to 15 minute break between sections 3 and 4. And your raw score is the amount of questions you get right, and that's converted to a number on a scale from 120 to 180. Now, what's the structure of the LSAT? Well, the test tests your ability to reason logically, so there's no specific legal content, but you do need to know logic, and in particular, conditional reasoning. And how should you study for it? You need to learn the logic, learn the techniques and strategies, do the exercises, and then do actual LSATs. Okay, so in these videos, we've covered some of the fundamental introductory aspects to the test as a whole. And as you go through the rest of the videos in the course, we'll be covering the various concepts and categories and question types that you need to know in order to do well on the test.